Police opened apartment 312 and found nothing. For 6 consecutive nights, residents of the Briar Heights apartment complex reported hearing screaming from apartment 312, furniture scraping, heavy footsteps, something slamming against the walls. Police were called twice. Both times, no one answered the door. Then on the 7th night, officers forced their way inside. What they found made no sense. The apartment was completely empty. No furniture, no lights. No sign anyone had lived there for years, and yet the sound of footsteps was still echoing from somewhere inside. This is the mystery of apartment 312. Some mysteries begin with a disappearance. Others begin with a locked door. This one began with a room that should have been silent, but wasn't. The Briar Heights complex sat on the edge of Kingston's Western Business District. Built in the early 1980s, it was once considered one of the city's most modern apartment blocks. By 2023, however, the 12-story building had become worn and neglected. Frequent electrical issues, water leaks, elevators that often stopped between floors. Still, dozens of tenants remained. Apartment 312 was located on the 3rd floor at the end of the eastern corridor. According to building management, it had been vacant for nearly 4 years. The previous tenant, Daniel Morgan, had reportedly moved overseas without notice. His rent stopped, his lease expired, and no one had occupied the apartment since, at least officially. On the evening of October 11th, residents on the 3rd floor began hearing unusual noises. At approximately 11:43 p.m., tenant Shanice Wallace, who lived directly across the hall, reported hearing what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor. At first, she assumed someone had moved in, but around midnight, the sounds changed. Scraping became pounding. Pounding became frantic footsteps. Then came what she described as a man screaming like he was being attacked. She called building security. Security guard Trevor Blake arrived outside apartment 312 at 12:14 a.m. He later stated the hallway was completely still. No sound, no movement. He knocked. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. He contacted management, who confirmed no one should have been inside. Trevor remained outside the apartment for nearly 5 minutes. Then, according to his statement, he heard a single loud bang from inside, hard enough to shake the door. He immediately backed away, but before he could call police, the sound stopped completely. Over the next 5 nights, similar reports flooded in, always between 11:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. Always from apartment 312. Residents described footsteps running back and forth, furniture scraping, loud impacts against the walls, occasional screaming. One resident claimed she heard someone repeatedly shouting, "Don't open it." Management insisted no one was inside. The locks had not been changed. No utility usage was recorded. No water, no electricity, nothing. On October 17th, after multiple emergency calls, officers responded. Body camera footage later confirmed the hallway was silent upon arrival. They knocked repeatedly. No response. Then, at 12:06 a.m., a loud crash came from inside. Officers drew their weapons. One shouted for whoever was inside to identify themselves. Nothing. After receiving authorization, they forced entry. The door splintered open. Flashlights swept across the room. What they revealed stunned everyone. The apartment was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no appliances, no curtains. A thick layer of dust covered the floor, except for one detail. Across the dust were dozens of fresh footprints, barefoot, moving frantically from room to room. The prints appeared chaotic, panicked, as if someone had been running in circles, but they all stopped abruptly in the center of the living room. There were no exit prints, no continuation, just an empty circle of disturbed dust. As officers examined the room, body cam audio captured something disturbing. A slow series of footsteps directly above them, heavy, measured, crossing the ceiling from one side of the apartment to the other. The officers immediately rushed upstairs, apartment 412, but when they knocked, no one answered. Management unlocked the unit. It too was vacant. Investigators later reviewed building records. That's when they discovered something unusual. Apartment 312 had once been occupied by Daniel Morgan, but before him, another tenant had lived there, a man named Elias Grant. In 2017, neighbors had reported hearing violent disturbances from his apartment. Police responded, found nothing. 2 weeks later, Elias disappeared. His case was never solved. During a second forensic sweep, investigators examined the living room floor more closely. Beneath years of dust, they found deep gouge marks in the hardwood, long parallel scratches, as though something extremely heavy had been dragged repeatedly toward the center of the room, and directly beneath where the footprints stopped, they discovered a sealed maintenance hatch, hidden under old floorboards. It had been welded shut from the inside. Authorities never publicly revealed what was found below. 3 weeks later, before the apartment could be renovated, a motion sensor inside Unit 312 triggered at exactly 11:58 p.m. Security reviewed the footage. The camera showed the empty living room, still, silent. Then at the center of the floor, a set of fresh bare footprints began appearing one by one, as if someone invisible was walking toward the door. The feed cut out before anything else was seen. Apartment 312 was permanently sealed the following month. No tenant has lived there since. And residents say that if you stand in the third-floor hallway just before midnight, you can still hear something moving inside, waiting. What do you think was inside apartment 312? And what was beneath that welded hatch? Let me know your theory in the comments, and subscribe for the next unsolved case.